The Joker. Forget what you saw in the movie. Well, actually, don't. Those were great movies, but for the sake of this video, forget about it. Because the real Joker is so much more evil. But let me show you why that is by dissecting the Joker's dark side like he did his victims, starting with the Joker's birth, which no one knows about. Sorry, we don't know anything about the Joker's childhood, and anyone that tells you otherwise is just lying, making statements. The closest thing to an origin we have for the story of the Joker is the story he told us himself. But I mean, that's relying on a certified insane man who literally lives to joke, so get your pinches of salt ready for this one. Young Joker grew up with his very sick in the head Aunt Eunice, who abused young Joker, preferably by bathing him with bleach, which caused his skin to turn permanently white and his brain to turn permanently to the dark side, so dark that even Darth Vader would go,
"Daddy, chill."
So that's what the Joker tells us his origin is. But he also told people that he was once a super soldier that was trained to be part of a secret army of Batman meant to destroy society, a secret army he escaped from, and ever since he is on a mission to save the world from Batman. And he told people that he is actually the devil. At another time he told people that he's an android or time-traveling murderous clown that gets stronger and more murderous anytime anybody in Gotham City laughs.
As a joke, and he would then share it with...
So really, the Joker has us deep on our philosopher thing, and that all we know is that we know nothing. But luckily that changes once we get to adult Joker, because way post-puberty, we know that the Joker was once a normal man. A normal man failing as a comedian and struggling to provide for his pregnant wife, Jeannie. Pregnant Jeannie wasn't built for that life of hardships. She was unhappy with the marriage, the daily struggle of unhappiness and the poverty. It sent Jeannie's pre-existing mental health issues into a free fall that ended with her faking her own death to get away from her husband and start a new life for her and her unborn child in Alaska. So one morning, the Joker woke up to have a pretty bad day, on which the police told him that his pregnant wife, Jeannie, had died. In one swoop, the Joker had lost it all: his wife, his child, his future, and the reason he even endured the struggle of a comedian trying to make ends meet in a world that seemed to not have a smile or a care to spare for the less fortunate. No, actually, a world that not seemed to not have that. The Joker was now certain that this world did not, in fact, care about the less fortunate, or how else could his wife Jeannie and innocent unborn child just be taken from him? The Joker was convinced that the world is rotten and corrupt, and all those who don't see it are just one bad day away from experiencing the truth that ever so famously shall set you free. And so, ever since, the Joker made it his mission to prove that theory in blood.
All it takes is one bad day. That's how far the world is from where I am. Just one bad day.
And who better to prove it against than the stoic symbol of ethic and morals, Batman. But at the time, the Joker and the Batman weren't enemies yet. In fact, at the time, the Joker wasn't even the Joker at all. The failed comedian who had his future taken from him started his new life as a gamer. Sure, he didn't have a lot of money, but that wasn't a problem because he downloaded all his games from Instant Gaming. You see, on Instant Gaming, he could save what little money he had because they constantly have discounts on all games. 10% off, 20% off, 30% off. They're like the Oprah of gaming, and it doesn't even matter what platform you're on because they have discounts for PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, PC, and it's so easy too. You just buy the game, get a code, and use it in whichever store it is you're using. Steam, PlayStation Store, it doesn't matter because this is all official. This isn't cracked stuff, this isn't illegal, this doesn't block you from any multiplayer. It's the official game. It's just cheaper on Instant Gaming in the same way a store might have a discount, except stores don't have these types of discounts because only Instant Gaming is this cheap. You get me? Sorry, I got excited there. But just trust me and click the link in my description to start saving money and get just excited as I am. Start saving money on games now. I mean, just click it.
Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can!
After a while though, instant gaming has you saving so much money that you have enough savings to start a criminal career. And so the Joker hung up his gaming shoes and put on a red hood instead. You see, before he was known as the Joker, his first supervillain identity was actually the Red Hood. If there are any men working in the adult industry watching this, great stage name, like the Red Hood. Think about it. I'm just saying. I don't know. I'm just saying. As the Red Hood, he led the Red Hood gang, which might sound like a very self-centered gang name at first, but it's one that makes perfect sense once you realize that this gang wasn't really gang at all. All its members were forced to be part of the Red Hood gang by the Red Hood himself. All the members were middle or upper class people blackmailed into taking on secret gang identities, hiding behind Red Hoods, committing all kinds of crimes. And by all kinds of crimes, I mean aimless violence. Because again, all Red Hood, remember the Joker, all he really wanted was to test the boundaries of ethics and morals. How far are you willing to let yourself get blackmailed into hurting innocents for the sake of keeping your secret and public image and status safe? Well, it turns out that these people were willing to go quite far, and the Red Hood gang caused violence and terror all over Gotham City. So much so that they got on the radar of Gotham's protector, Batman. So this is when the future Joker, currently Red Hood, first ran into Batman. The Bat was trying to rescue innocent hostages from the Red Hood gang, and so he did his vigilante thing, like,
Where are you?
and one after the other, Batman picked off the members of the Red Hood gang, interrogated them, and eventually unraveled the gang's planned evil magnum opus to steal flesh-eating chemicals from a chemical factory and unleash them on Gotham City. But not on Batman's watch. The hero infiltrated the chemical factory to foil their plan, except that the main Red Hood was well aware that Batman was on his tail, and so he pulled a Kim Kardashian by leaking the plan himself. You get me? So that he could lure Batman into the chemical factory where the Red Hood gang prepared an ambush for him. But the outcome was that the Batman ended up just whooping all of them anyway.
Oh well, we tried.
And so the main Red Hood, the Joker, ran away, the only one managing to escape by clinging on to a helicopter. Or so he thought. Batman used his grappling hook to latch onto the Red Hood mid-flight and yanked him off the helicopter, only for both of them to crash through the roof of the factory and towards certain death in one of its chemical pits. But there wouldn't be much of a legacy of the Batman and the Joker if things ended here. On some real Mufasa thing, Batman managed to cling on to the edge of something, and also on some Mufasa thing, the Red Hood clung onto Batman's hand for dear life, except that the Joker quickly turned Scar on himself. While Batman tried to save him, Red Hood let go of his hand, screaming that this is only the beginning, as he seemingly fell to his death in the chemical pit below. No body was ever recovered from the Red Hood's fall into certain doom, and thus Gotham never definitively learned the identity of the leader of the Red Hood gang that had terrorized the city. But it didn't really matter, because shortly after the gang dissolved, a newer, bigger threat emerged. A new villain arrived on Gotham's scene. A villain with oddly bleached white skin and green hair, looking like he recently fell into a bucket of chemicals or acid or something. I sure hope some master detective figures this identity out. This new villain, the Joker, was manically crazy, criminally insane, and as unstable as your last relationship.
Oh.
And so he made a bid for Rookie of the Year in Gotham's illustrious villain scene by trying to poison Gotham's water reserves. Kind of boring, but definitely a classic and super efficient as far as widespread catastrophes go. But of course, Gotham's hero Bat saved its city and apprehended the Joker. And they don't call Batman a master detective for nothing. Batman put 2 and 2 together. He realized that the Joker was the Red Hood, and Batman then even deduced that the Red Hood was a particular former comedian whose pregnant wife faked her death only to get away from him. Batman then took it one step further and found out his wife's and son's identity, found out that they were alive and well in Alaska. But he kept all of that a secret because the insane man with the green hair who just tried to poison all of Gotham should definitely not be trusted with the location of his child and the wife whose fake death sent him down this path of insanity. But keep all of that in mind. The Batman knows something that the Joker doesn't. So, for now, the Joker was stopped, arrested and off to Arkham Asylum, a rehabilitation clinic for the clinically insane. But Arkham is really less of a rehab facility for the criminally insane and more of a university on how to become even more criminally insane. And after the Joker got his courses and his credits in, he escaped the asylum to cause more mayhem in Gotham. He started a war with fellow clinically insane supervillain the Riddler, a war in which all of Gotham got caught up in the crossfire, and when that was over and done with, the Joker found many other creative evil ways to keep on terrorizing Gotham. The details of his terror schemes aren't all that important. What's more important is that time and time again, Batman was there to stop him. Time and time again, the Joker pushed Batman's ethics and moral code of not allowing himself to be judge, jury, and executioner to the limit, but every single time, Batman simply apprehended the Joker and handed him over to the authorities. AKA back to Arkham Asylum for more credits it was. Of course, the Joker just constantly escaped the asylum to cause more havoc, and at some point, you gotta ask yourself, how many times can you capture the Joker, a sociopath who has proven he will escape over and over only to commit more heinous crimes, all in the quest to get you to forget your principles and kill him to prove his point that all it takes is one bad day to push any man over the edge? At what point does Batman have accountability in the Joker's crimes? At what point does Batman have to kill one man to save hundreds of others? So the Joker kept on pushing Batman's buttons and found out that even someone as secluded as the Bat had people that were close to him, like the police commissioner Gordon or Batman's teenage sidekick Robin, which... Can we talk about the fact that Batman thought it would be a good idea to take on a minor as a sidekick in his line of work? So the Joker found out about the people close to Batman and went after them one after the other. He killed Robin, and he tortured Chief Commissioner Gordon's daughter, Barbara, to the point that she was permanently paralyzed. But still, Batman did not break. The Bat refused to bend to Joker's ideology and weathered all the bad days. Again and again, he turned the Joker over to the authorities at Arkham Asylum, and he hired a new Robin? A new teenage Robin? Teenage Robin. At some point, somebody's got to call child services on this guy. This time, Arkham put a psychiatrist named Harley Quinn in charge of the Joker's rehabilitation. But Harley just so happened to be madly obsessed with this guy. Like, forget No Nut November, we're talking about a woman who can't even make it past an afternoon without nodding to the Joker. You get me, bruv. And this woman was in charge of a villain, so obviously it was easy for the Joker to seduce her and make Harley help him escape Arkham once more, and more than that, he turned her into his sidekick and the closest thing to a love interest. Harley Quinn became Harley Quinn, who I won't talk about in this video because she already had her own video last week. So watch that and subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss any of these videos. So the Joker was free again. Did some more bad things, killed some people, couldn't get Batman to break his code, and so he got locked up again. And on the two kept on dancing until the Joker finally decided that that dance got boring. For him to finally break Batman, he had to turn it up a notch. So the Joker came up with his most elaborate and devious plan yet. He came up with his endgame for Batman. On his last visit to Arkham Asylum, the Joker cooked up a plan that was sure to push Batman to the dark side, and it all started with the Joker getting his face cut off, like seriously, face circumcision all the way cut off, like he's gender swapping, you get me? But it was all a means to an end. The Joker had arranged a visit to Arkham Asylum from fellow villain the Doll Maker, and true to his name, the Doll Maker dolled the Joker up by cutting his face off and pinning it against a wall for all to see. Understandably, everybody assumed that the Joker was now dead, and the attention this public stunt generated allowed faceless Joker to escape the asylum yet again. The Joker laid low for a while so that even the greatest doubters were convinced of his actual death. And then he made a comeback greater than LeBron's hairline. Man, I really shouldn't be making jokes about hairlines, probably. The faceless Joker broke into the Gotham police headquarters, killed a couple of cops, and literally stole back the rotten face that they had kept locked up for like a year. And then the Joker stapled his old skin to his skinless face. That's gross.
Ugh. Brother, ugh.
Then, to make sure everybody knows he's really back, the Joker committed a murder on live television, and with all of Gotham's attention now on him, he used Harley Quinn to impersonate his former villain alter ego. Remember, the one with the perfect adult film star name, Red Hood. He had Harley Quinn impersonate him under the Red Hood to lure Batman into a trap and off the Joker's tail. The Joker used that Batman free time to actually kidnap Alfred from Wayne Mansion, and then sent Batman one of those cute voice messages where you hear the person who basically raised you being tortured by having acid torn in his eyes. Who hasn't received a message like that? Obviously, rescuing Alfred was priority number one now, and Batman followed all of the Joker's clues like a fool, being led straight into the Joker's next trap, a rigged explosion that left Batman just incapacitated and injured enough that the Joker could tell him the real target of his plan: the Bat family. Batgirl, Robin, Nightwing, all of them. Batman was not meant to die here, he was just meant to have a very bad day. A day on which he is liberated from the weakness that is his family. And the Joker would be the one to set him free by killing them all. For he had learned all their identities and was sure to end their lives within the next 72 hours. And with that, he left the injured Batman behind to be rescued by the police, giving him just barely enough time to recover, and sure enough, within 72 hours, it was reported that the Joker had taken over Arkham Asylum, where he was holding several hostages. Of course, Batman feared the worst and dragged his body to the asylum to confront the Joker, ready to put an end to his plan, but the plans were already complete. The Joker showed Batman a recording of the kidnapped Bat family, all of them tied up, ready to be killed if Batman doesn't play nice and allows the Joker to take him in too. So with his hands tied, Batman then literally had his hands tied and the Joker knocked him unconscious. Moments later, Batman woke up to his worst nightmare. All his loved ones, Robin, Batgirl, all of the Bat family, tied up to a dining table with their faces covered in bloody bandages, and they were served by a mutilated Alfred, poisoned, serving them silver plates. Under the influence of Joker's venom, not knowing what he was doing, Alfred was serving them silver plates that were said to contain each of their faces, neatly placed at the table in front of them. The Joker explained that while he still carried a smile underneath his faceless face, he doubts that the Bat family will walk away from this bad day unscathed. Even if Batman does manage to rescue them, will they still find a smile without their face, or will facing the truth of the world break them? Sure enough, Batman will find out, or kill them, because the whole cave was actually filled with gas, which is set to ignite once Batman gets off the chair he is tied to, since the triggers are set to go off once the weight shifts, aka once Batman moves. And with that cozy situation all set up, the Joker left Batman and his family to their fate. But of course, Batman doesn't just burn and die here. What do you think this is, Tibet? Batman figured out the structure of the cave, got off the chair, which ignited the gas, but he quickly blew a hole in the cave ceiling to fill the cave with water, which stopped the fire. And then Batman immediately untied Robin, Batgirl, and the others. He took their bandages off, only to see that the Joker was joking. He never cut off their faces, he just wanted to see how far he could push the Batman yet again. And this time, Batman was pissed, and he went after the Joker, confronting him at the edge of a cliff with only death waiting beyond. Similar to how their whole relationship started, except that now, Batman was far from any Mufasa energy. He wasn't here to save the Joker, he came to give him the beating of a lifetime and taunted the Joker while he was at it, taunting him, saying that he knows who the Joker really is, he knows his true identity, and he knows of his past life. Upon hearing that, the Joker lost it. He didn't want to hear another word, and the maniac chose death over giving Batman the satisfaction of getting a human reaction out of him. The Joker jumped off the cliff into the nothingness below. But it actually wasn't nothingness at all. Below the cliff was Joker's backup plan, a pit filled with Dionysium, a liquid that conveniently restores your face and heals your wounds and gives you supernatural healing.
How convenient is that? Wow.
The Joker had planned for this all along. The whole faceless thing was really only the Infinity War part of his Endgame with Batman. Now, the Joker emerged out of that pit of Dionysium stronger than he ever was, and it truly was time for their final dance. To end it all and definitely push Batman over the edge, the Joker pulled out all the stops. He drugged the entire Justice League with a poison he had carefully crafted over some time, a poison that turned all of Batman's hero friends into homicidal maniacs that are dead set on killing the Bat, aka Batman had to single-handedly fight off the Justice League. But that in itself is not Endgame material just yet, no. The Joker then infected all of Gotham, women and children too, with the same virus to turn the entire city into laughing, homicidal maniacs that the Batman could only stop with violence. And to make sure that Batman's bad day is just perfect, the Joker then put the bloody cherry on top. He buried a hatchet in Commissioner Gordon's chest and cut off the right hand of Batman's right-hand man, the closest thing Batman had to a father, the man who raised and assisted Batman in all things, Alfred. The Joker mutilated Alfred and then paraded the chopped off body part around Gotham. Finally, Batman was having a very bad day, and emotional, he went after the Joker. But emotional is exactly what the Joker needed him to be, to lure Batman into a confrontation precisely where he had planned. Their final dance took place in the pit filled with Dionysium, where Batman and the Joker fought hand to hand, and where, thanks to the Dionysium, Joker's body was constantly healed throughout their fight so that he could actually go toe to toe with Batman, and the two beat each other up well beyond the point of utter exhaustion. Ever healing, the Joker and Batman fought and fought and fought until the entire pit was destroyed. The entire liquid around them had dried up or seeped through the cracks. There was no more liquid left, so there was no more healing left, but there was seemingly no bone left unbroken. The two enemies had beat each other to death. Both of their wounds were beyond healing, and the Joker and Batman collapsed side by side, dying in this empty pit somewhere below Gotham. A bad day, his worst day, his last day, had finally gotten Batman to fulfill the Joker's wish. Batman killed. He killed the Joker. But this is comic books. There's always a butt pull waiting to happen. And damn, imagine if this had been the official ending to the Batman series. Can we just imagine that for a moment? Sometimes I wish comics were more like mangas, one writer, one ending, but no, they need to keep printing money, so there's always a big butt waiting, and I cannot lie, I don't like these big butts. Of course, there was some Dionysium left in the pit, and it healed both Batman and the Joker. In fact, it healed them up so good that there were no wounds left, not physical, not mental. Batman had no more scars, the Joker's skin was no longer bleached white, and his hair was no longer green, and the traumas that triggered their superhero and supervillain identities were gone. And so were any memories of their time as hero and villain. Batman, or Bruce Wayne, had no more memories of being the Bat, and the Joker forgot he ever was the manic clown prince of crime. With their minds reset, the two returned to society, starting a new life. The Joker found himself working at a butcher shop, doing the 9-to-5, and Bruce returned to being Bruce Wayne, the billionaire. Decidedly not a 9-to-5, but also without a secret identity. And just like that, they lived happily ever after. Until one day, civilian butcher shop employee Joker decided that happily ever after was not in the cards for him, and that suicide was actually the way to go. On a particularly bad day, he decided to end his life in a park in Gotham. Decided to end it there on the very same day that Bruce Wayne decided to go for a stroll in that very park. And so on this bad day, Bruce Wayne ran into the Joker, a man that was a complete stranger to him, a man on the verge of taking his life, and Bruce Wayne talked that man out of it, convinced him that life was still worth living. Bruce Wayne, the man behind the mask that once failed to save the Joker from falling into the chemical pit of destiny, now saved the Joker on this bad day in the park. He saved the former villain who once, in a whirlwind of violence and a master class of criminal insanity, got Batman to break his code and ended the vigilante's life of never-ending vengeance on this bad day in the park. A healed Batman saved a broken Joker. What beautiful poetry, what a full circle moment. And with that, their final encounter and their story came to an end. Not. Yeah, nah man, comic books. Then Bruce Wayne used the machine in the Batcave to return his memories of being the Batman, and conveniently the Joker's insanity returned to him and he went back to being a mad criminal. And that's not even the actual ending, because there's no ending. This is ever continuing. There's never truly any final satisfaction. The tale of the Joker, and thus Batman, will forever go on, and it would be impossible to cover it all in one video, less so a video that is coherent and makes sense. So instead, I chose to find the one red thread through all of the Joker's appearances that allows me to weave a good story for you in this video. Obviously, I had to skip a lot of the Joker's arcs, like the whole Batman Who Laughs arc, which is actually awesome, or the whole thing where the Joker is 3 Jokers, which is awesome but equally as confusing. But all of that stuff, it just veers too much into the weird and the supernatural, and I wanted to keep all the dark multiverse supernatural stuff out of this video. I wanted to focus on the gritty human tales of the Joker, of what to me is the core of the character. A man out on a mission against ethics and morals. A man out to prove that all it takes is one bad day.